Thank you, Mary. Acting High Commissioner, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for making doubles your priority this evening. In the audience here, in addition to the very high status in this society, which I feel very humbled to know that this story piqued your interest. In the audience also live characters in this book, and I'd like to mention a few of them. My wife, as Mary just mentioned, my amazing Grace, is here with me. Maybe she should stand up. My sister Sham, our second mother to the two younger brothers and sisters. James West, you met, and he played an important role in the book that you will read. He continues to be my role model. He actually mentored me in many subjects, but now he's mentoring me on how to live long like he is living. You met Les Kumar Mizir. What is interesting about Les is when I dedicated this book, or have him as one of the dedicatees, I was not aware that he was alive still. Because we parted company 55 years ago. That's a lifetime. And I found him through the technology of Facebook. And I said, is this the Leslie Kumar Mizir who taught me in Gandhi Memorial Village School? And lo and behold, he said yes. So I have Ray and Sylvia. You met Ray, the first speaker. But this couple, Sylvia has taken charge of the cash register. That's the kind of friend we have for over 55 years. Nobody's going to mess with her cash. I thank you all for helping me to sharpen my pen and to express myself in the ways that I did in the book. It was because I had to tell the stories about you guys, among others, of course. I'm glad to be back in Canada, in the capital city of Ottawa, a place and a country that transformed my life. When I came out of the Douglas kitchen, it was Canada that I came to. Winnipeg in particular, and Canada remains an important experience in my life. Canada transformed my life. Out of the Douglas Kitchen is a memoir of my family, the first family of Douglas, the _1 street food of Trinidad and Tobago. Out of the Douglas Kitchen is a micro history of the post-indenture Indo-Trinidadian experience. It becomes a metaphor for the journey of those determined immigrants to whom necessity became a catalyst for invention and creativity, allowing them to escape their prison of poverty. The publication and launch of this book is a celebration of the triumph, and I'm borrowing a couple of words from someone I haven't met, but I met him on the radio station, Mr. Stanford, and I will use it in this sentence. The publication and launch of this book is a celebration of the triumph of the spirit which informed my father and which has inspired his family. Out of the Douglas Kitchen is certainly not a recipe book on how to make doubles. The only recipe you will find within the pages of this book is a recipe of life. The lives of a people brought from a distant place into conditions of slavery and servitude on colonial plantations of Trinidad and Tobago. Any discussion about this book will, first of all, especially to the non-Trinidadian or Caribbean people, you will wonder, what is this doubles we're talking about? And why a book about doubles? Before I can answer these questions, I would like to frame the conversations around these two questions. Let me give you a little background history, the setting from which my family's journey emerged. When the African slaves were emancipated in the British Caribbean in 1838, the planters had to find cheap alternative labor, and any cheap labor would have been, of course, more expensive than the free labor they were accustomed to. So they started looking at China, Portugal, and found it made more sense to go to India, where they had already colonized that nation, that country. And the Indians were accustomed to working in the tropical sun, and their impoverished conditions made it appealing to them to accept any promise, even in their faults, to improve themselves. Many Indians grabbed that opportunity, and so the duration of this labor scheme lasted 72 years, from 1845 to 1917, during which time approximately 144,000 Indians arrived in Trinidad. Upon arrival, the indentured Indians were banished to the sugar estates and not allowed to interact with the greater society, and not even to interact with other Indians in other estates, which, if they did, would have required important passes to get out of your respective estates. This is a seminal reason for the late start of the Indo-Trinidadians in learning the English language and for their full participation in the new society that the colonial masters were creating. Talking about the late start of English, I came from a home of no books to writing a book and leaving it in the archives of the University of Manitoba last week. My pioneering parents were second-generation descendants of those Indians who had arrived in Trinidad 169 years ago. After the indenture scheme ended, the planters continued to pay only a pittance of a wage to desperate laborers who had little or no options. My father worked in those plantations, the post-indenture plantations, for 1 shilling or 24 cents a day. So the story of doubles begins with the need to escape an oppressive system. Doubles is a plural word, if, by now you might have picked up. So in Trinidad it is grammatically correct to say, I want a doubles, and be completely understood. It's an Indo-Trinidadian vegan delicacy made of spicy curried chickpeas, chana in Hindi, served with a choice of chutneys between 2 fried flatbreads called baras in Hindi. The sandwich is wrapped and sold in paper at most busy street corners in Trinidad and Tobago. It can be plausibly assumed that doubles evolved from the Indian dish called chana bhatura, but the distinctly different taste characteristics and presentation of doubles as a sandwich makes it uniquely Trinidadian. I have tasted chana bhatura in New Delhi, Haridwar, Rishikesh, and Varanasi, and this is uniquely Trinidadian, and as James West said, that taste will linger on for a long time. Doubles were created, and by the way, the doubles you can use is singular and plural, so doubles were created by my illiterate parents, Imam and Badru Deen, in 1936 in Princestown, Trinidad. They ventured into entrepreneurship to escape the social circumstances, their circumstances, and ended up cooking their way out of poverty. My parents' only possession, as James indicated, when they got married, were a rally bike, a pair of chickens, and a nanny goat. But it was a critical turning point in their lives when they sensed the difference between the return on capital and the return from investing in your labor to make a living. They sold a goat for 7 shillings and invested the proceeds in raw materials to make spicy fried chickpeas or chana, which was sold in cone-shaped brown paper packs for 1 cent per pack. They saw in a grain of chickpeas or chana the seed of their destiny. Experimenting further, they made and sold curried chickpeas, and in a eureka moment, combined the curried chickpeas on a single barrel. As James indicated, when our ancestors came from India, a bara existed, and chana existed in different forms. But combining the chana on that bara, their customers loved it and started to ask him to double up on the bara, hence the name doubles. Ironically, my parents, who could not speak proper English, added the word doubles to the national lexicon of Trinidad and Tobago and the diaspora. Like lemon, they were given chickpeas and they made doubles. The #1 street food of Trinidad and Tobago. Just like Italy is known for its pizza and Mexico for its tacos, doubles is now synonymous with the double island nation of Trinidad and Tobago. On September 3rd, just last month, the renowned Zagat Reviews listed doubles as one of the 9 global cuisines that needs to be more popular. So the business entrepreneurs out there, run with it. Pilots and air hostesses make a beeline to the doubles vendors at Piarco International Airport in Trinidad to take back this iconic treat on their return flights. CNN journalist Cara Reedy, at the beginning of this year, wrote a piece on doubles, which she's a Midwestern American, said that she discovered doubles in Brooklyn, New York, and she didn't know what to order, what it was, but the aroma just drove her crazy. She put it in her purse, took it in. Anyone who knows about doubles, if you stuff a doubles in your purse, by the time you get to the office, it's a mush. However, the aroma made the other workers curious, and she wrote in her piece that she soon became the doubles dealer for the office. Mako magazine, or in Trinidad we say Mako magazine, places doubles in the top 7 delicacies of the Caribbean. Travel Channel Andrew Zimmern featured doubles on his popular food program Bizarre Foods and discovered that it was delicious and certainly not bizarre. During the longest Trinidadian parliamentary debate that lasted 27 hours on March 2nd and 3rd of 2012, the Parliament, James, recessed for doubles. The fact that Trinidadians now take, thank you, the fact that Trinidadians now take the accomplishments of the doubles business for granted underscores how significant its progress has been, given that 78 years ago, its success would have been considered unthinkable. Here is some interesting information for you Canadians. Canada now supplies the main ingredients, chickpeas, flour, and spices, such as coriander, for the doubles industry in Trinidad and Tobago. They are grown on the prairies of Manitoba and Saskatchewan. Only the condiments and the consumers are Trinidadians. To put the minds of the health conscious at ease, I also wrote about the nutritional value of chickpeas that you will find within the pages of the book. So that takes us to the second question. Why a book about doubles? Well, I'll tell you a little story that might have triggered off my motivation to write the book, the story. I returned to Trinidad on one of my several return trips, and I stopped at the doubles vendor. I was enjoying her doubles, and I asked her, "Do you know who created doubles?" She said, "No." I said, "What if I told you it was my father?" And in a beautiful Trinidadian accent, she said, dialect, she said, "Don't try that. You're trying to get a free double here." So, someone who's making a living out of doubles and represents, more than herself, did not know the origin of doubles. Then, after my father passed, there were people coming out of the woodworks, including some relatives, human nature, who went up on television, national television, and claiming they created doubles. So that motivated me. I had to do something for my illiterate parents who had a vision to send me to get an education. And this is how I decided to pay homage to my parents, and my father in particular, for what he created, and to give credit where credit was due. I wrote this book as Ambassador Chandra Singh noted in the foreword, to establish my family's innovation in indentureship cuisine and to register our contribution to the nation of Trinidad and Tobago. It was necessary to set the record straight, as others have started usurping the credit for creating doubles. Based on the oral history as related by my parents and their contemporaries, including Mr. James West, who is an eyewitness. I don't want to age him, but he looks well for his age. Based on that oral history of the circumstances out of which doubles emerged, my research and videotape interviews that lasted over a couple of years, credibly, reliably, and compellingly corroborated the oral history I was told. The theme of my book is a double story of doubles. The first pays homage to my humble parents who escaped poverty by creating and selling doubles. The second theme celebrates the ingenuity of their children, led by the author, who saw emigrating to the greater opportunities in Canada and the United States as our only hope of escaping institutional impediments and poverty. Like my parents, my siblings and I were considered boiled chana grains with no chance to sprout. Within the second theme is a deeply personal memoir of my journey out of the doubles kitchen to higher education, corporate life, and the American dream. The writing of this book led me on an inward journey that was therapeutic and cathartic. It brought me from behind the mask of anonymity, where I lived a double life for over 5 decades, to embrace my identity finally as a son of the doubles man. It helped me to confront my demon of shame that was imposed on me during my impressionable years by bullies and society's devalued status of the doubles man. It was not until I started writing about my life that I found the deepest contradictions lived within me, embedded in a web of my own shame. I started to unravel on the pages I wrote. I had spent most of my life performing behind the mask of anonymity. I wrote in my book, coming from the doubles kitchen to 100 Park Avenue in New York, where Philip Morris, I had my interviews for the job in Trinidad. This is the #1 consumer product company in the world at the time. And I'm comparing the world headquarters of doubles, the doubles kitchen, to the world headquarters of Philip Morris International at 100 Park Avenue. It was mind-boggling. It takes some kind of a detachment from your reality to cope with these differences. So I said I had spent most of my life performing behind the mask of anonymity, trying simultaneously to find and hide myself, but ultimately running. It was not until I stood at a podium like this and told my story that my performance became authentic. In sharing the truth of my past, I became free from the need to be ashamed of it. These sessions are usually a reading, so I will do a little piece of the reading to coincide with that shame and so on that I carry, and with this couple of paragraphs. The accomplishments of the first family of doubles are not measured in academics, careers, or net worth, but in the journey that started in the doubles kitchen, a place that is now so far away and yet so close. They are measured in the psychological distances from the rural villages of Fairfield, Princestown, in Trinidad to the University of Manitoba, Canada, from illiteracy to economics, marketing, law, medicine, science, and information technology in just 2 generations. They are measured from the doubles kitchen to the American dream, which James Truslow Adams described as a better, richer, and fuller life for everyone, with opportunities for each according to ability or achievement, regardless of social class or circumstances of birth. My past certainly has influenced who I am, but I was ultimately responsible for the individual I became. My identity, which started as the son of the doubles man, and which I repressed for most of my life, has come full circle to remind me that this is the identity I must embrace to bring closure in accepting my reality. My upbringing was a blessing, not a curse. Beneath my biggest wounds of poverty, privation, early loss of loved ones, scant respect, and sadness, lies my greatest gift, a heart that knows deep pain and loves anyway. So I will serve you a Dean's doubles, a tasty, nutritious vegan meal that my father created, and I will do it with pride and a smile on my face, no shame. Yes, James, I am the son of the doubles man, and that's good enough for me. I wrote about the Indo-Trinidadian subculture that 169 years have woven into the larger Trinidadian cultural tapestry, and the interplay of the various subcultures, the resulting adaptations, and the jostling by the various social, racial, ethnic, and religious groups for their respective socioeconomic positions in Trinidad and Tobago. I ventured into a candid description of taboo subjects such as alcoholism, bullying, child brides, domestic violence, and unanesthetized circumcision. James? I described the important role of music in my family, in my family's life, the value of thoughtful mentors, and you heard of a few tonight, and lifelong friends, and my imbued spirituality that transcends religion. Out of the Doubles Kitchen is a story of possibility that offers a universal lesson in believing in yourself, that despite your circumstances, you can still rise above them and achieve your dreams. For example, when my father realized that the job he was fantasizing about did not exist, he created it. He demonstrated that even if uneducated, we can always use our basic common sense to set goals, work assiduously, and achieve favorable outcomes. The launch of this memoir of my family is the culmination of a journey that took 78 years to arrive, from the colonial sugar plantations of Trinidad to the archives of the University of Manitoba, my alma mater. The journey from those plantations to the corporate boardrooms of North America in 2 generations showcases the triumph of the resilient, innovative, persevering, and entrepreneurial human spirit to rise above its circumstances. For people from developing countries or the third world, I describe 2 of our own Cinderella stories: escaping poverty by means of creating and vending doubles, and escaping poverty by means of higher education. Although the product created by my parents is unique, my family's journey is not. It is a collective experience of a people rising above their circumstances. This experience resonates now with most third world immigrants. And if only one young disadvantaged person gets inspired by this 78-year journey, then the 5 years it took to research and write about it would not have been in vain. To readers of this memoir, I hope that it would be as inspiring to read as it was to write. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe said, "There are only two lasting bequests we can hope to give our children. One of these is roots and the other wings." This memoir will remind my children of their roots planted deep in the colonial sugar plantations of Trinidad, and they bequeath wings that allow them to soar over the North American landscape to determine their own destinies. I thank you for listening.